Whatever works, man.
No, she's getting the maximum number of people.
Okay, I'd like to call the Village of Wolverine Lake regular council meeting for July 12th to order. Please stand for the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Here.
Shula?
Here.
Jeremy?
Here.
Kaznecki? Here. McNutt?
Here.
Nedrow?
Here.
O'Brien?
Here.
I believe we have one additional business. It'll be under 10C2 for payment for Apex Brick and Landscape Services.
That's correct.
Regarding the Marshall Water Main. That, I think that concludes the additions, so look for a motion for approval of the agenda. Motion by Dumont, second by Duff. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. As far as correspondence and info, there's a Veterans Food Drive for Oakland County, July 20th, Lion Oaks, and August 17th at Dennis Oaks. Notice from Comcast that our Stars channel is going up $1. Imagine that. Notice from Huron River Watershed Council of what they've done over the last year, RealComp. And we had a couple emails from Mr. Renwick regarding our trash fees. So with that, we have a motion to receive and file. Motion by Duff.
Second.
Second by Dumont. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay, we are at the first call to the public. Opportunity for citizens to address council on agenda items only. So if you'd like to speak. Let's open the public.
Motion.
Motion by Duff, second by Dumont. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Stacy Dunnigan, 1638 Lakeview Drive. First, I'd like to say thank you to all the council members for your service to this community. I know it's often a thankless job, and I want to express my sincere appreciation for all you do. That being said, when a series of ordinances are being proposed, I consider it a really big deal, and I believe it should be wholly transparent to the residents of the community throughout the entire process. In the case of these series of ordinances regarding hot tubs, I don't believe it was. I first heard of these changes when I received the agenda for the last month's council meeting, and I was surprised that it did not specifically say what they're being changed to or exactly how the new ordinance would ultimately read. Surely, I thought this would be more fully addressed in the council meeting, but it was not. After watching the meeting, I had no more specific information than what had already been in the agenda, aside from learning why this was even being brought forth in the first place. We were told that the reason behind these changes were to make it easier for lakefront homes to have hot tubs and to minimize trips to the ZBA. If that were the case, then why not simply just change Ordinance 1280.06, which had read, quote, "Only in-ground pools are permitted in lakefront yards," and change that, as you did, by simply adding to it, quote, "Both in-ground and above-ground spas, hot tubs, or similar facilities are permitted in lakefront yards." It would seem you could have solved the problem at hand with just that. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. After watching the meeting, I actually had more questions than answers and was able to get an actual copy of all of these proposed ordinances. I also read back through past council meetings, planning committee meetings, and ZBA minutes. I would like to point out at this time that during the December 20th, 2022 ZBA meeting, when discussing this topic, our council liaison, Mr. Mark Duff, said, in regard to lakefront owners, quote, "If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile." And that was on the record. I'm actually quoting from the published minutes. To that, I would also like to be on the record by saying, Mr. Duff, not cool. We are not children you're chaperoning on a field trip. We are your neighbors and the residents you've been elected to represent. And I actually do have more to say on that comment, but instead I'll get back to the issue at hand. I think we can all agree that hot tubs are not swimming pools and should be treated differently. But with these new ordinances, now everyone in the village, not just lakefront owners who want a hot tub or need to replace an existing one, need to make a permit application with fees and a detailed site plan. These hot tubs will now be considered part of the maximum lot coverage, so residents who already have or are planning to build their home to the maximum allowable size are now restricted from having a hot tub. Not to mention any older homes which are considered non-conforming by current standards. I expect they would also need a trip to the ZBA if they wanted a hot tub or needed to replace an existing one. Next, making a requirement for everyone to secure their existing hot tubs with a fence or key locking lid by penalty of a court-enforced civil infraction and fine. And by the way, it says all residents must comply with this within 60 days of the effectiveness of these new ordinances. Are people just going to find out about this when they get their notice of the $75 first offense for just having the regular covers they've had on for years, which probably just clip in like most do, if they even do that? And by the way, why are we arbitrarily even worried about securing a little shallow hot tub anyway when we have a 1.7 square mile drowning hazard in the middle of our village? And speaking of arbitrary issues, why are we imposing an 8-foot by 8-foot restriction when a swimming pool can be up to 10% of the lot? Sure, an average medium hot tub comes in at around 7 to 8 feet, but what if a resident wants a larger one? Who are we to say they can't have it? And more importantly, why would we want to say that? And lastly, who decided that someone with a pool can't also have a hot tub and someone with a hot tub can't also have a pool? The only exception being an in-ground pool can have a hot tub if it's physically integrated into the sidewall. Please give me any good reason why a resident can't have both. It's like saying you can't have a grill because you already have an oven. They're different and you might want both. Why can't they? And I get it, if people have an issue going forward, they can roll the dice with the ZBA. And like you said last month, if they've done like they've done in the past, they'll probably okay most of the requests. But honestly, I think you're going to find you're making so much more work for the ZBA and not less like you intended. But in closing, I'll take it back to my original question. Why weren't we notified of the specific details of these changes? I can get 5 emails about a village garage sale or how to park on Tiki Night. But when you're making major changes to our code of ordinances that affect everybody, you appear to be attempting to sneak it in by only publicizing very limited information about what exactly is happening here. I do sincerely appreciate you all, but in this case, I have to say, I strongly oppose the scope of these changes and the regrettable lack of transparency in the process. I strongly urge you to reconsider whether all of these ordinances are really necessary and in the best interest of our community and its residences. And on a side note, please tell me that the discussion on short-term rentals on today's agenda is not going to go down the same way, because I'll be watching that too. So thank you very much for your time, and I'll be providing a written copy of my comments for the record.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none?
Motion to close.
Motion to close the public.
Second.
By Duff, second by Dumont. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Well, I suppose we could probably address some of those concerns when we talk about them later on, the ordinances coming up.
Be the logical time, I
Sure.
think, yeah.
Okay. Next we have consent agenda.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Dumont.
Second.
Second by Jeremy to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, the minutes from the last meeting has me both present and absent.
True.
So which were you, Mike?
So I was absent. Was not present.
Good catch. I'm assuming you didn't make any motions then either.
I did not. Not that meeting, I didn't.
Yeah. Okay, that was a
Motion to approve as amended.
second. Motion by Dumont, second by Jeremy. Any discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Dumont,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Kaznacki,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
Nedrow,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Okay, board appointments, we have none. Presentations, Finally, onwards and upwards for our 2023 Scholarship Award. This one's been a little while moving forward.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for being patient with us as we had to go back and forth on coordinating the date that would work for all of us. So it's my pleasure to be here today representing Onwards and Upwards, for whom I'm serving as the president of the board right now. And one of the big objectives of Onwards and Upwards Community Enrichment Fund, which we'll just call On and Up, is to encourage a rich and vibrant community. And I think a rich and vibrant community is always one in which as many people get involved as possible. So volunteerism is something we really try to encourage. So not surprisingly, we use that as one of the major criteria for our scholarship each year. And we're always looking for candidates who have demonstrated exceptional volunteerism. I don't have to tell anybody in this room how important that is to a community, because pretty much everybody here is already, I'm preaching to the choir. But it is something we try to encourage. So we were very happy this year to get 3 very worthy candidates, and we're just thrilled with that. And we chose one. And this evening, I'm here to present the scholarship, the 2023 scholarship, to a young man who has lived his whole life in the village and who has been brought up quite nicely to be conscientious and to get involved and to give back to his community. And so it is with great honor that I would like to present to you Jack Brubaker Flood, who is our recipient of the 2023 Onwards and Upwards Scholarship. Allow me, if you will, just a moment to run through a really quick summary of some of the things that he has done. He has been on the Mallow Beach cleanup team, a big job. It goes year-round, but especially in the summer and especially after Tiki Night. He has also volunteered at the Corn Roast Festival, working in the children's tent in a variety of capacities. Jack is also a baseball player and has done hundreds of hours of volunteer work with clinics to teach children about baseball, how to play it properly. But not only the fundamentals of the game, but also, as he said, we also want to share our love of the game with the kids and hope that they fall in love with baseball too. So he passes on the things he loves himself. He is also involved and has been with his parents, who are Walled Lake Eagles, in doing volunteer work with them, including working with the Commerce Goodfellows in December to collect money for needy households. And in 2022, they were able to assist more than 50 families to make sure they had a happy and safe holiday season. So these are just some of the things he has done. And he is now going to be heading this fall to Defiance College in Defiance, Ohio, where he will be studying physics and mathematics with an eye towards a medical degree afterward to become an anesthesiologist. He's also going to be playing baseball with him. And so I would like to
Thank you so much.
give you this scholarship, and thank you very much. Continue, and we know that every community that you live and work in is going to benefit from you, having you as a member. So if you wanted to say just a couple words. Oh, here, let's pretend to be shaken again.
Oh, look at that. Isn't that pretty? Our hands.
Thank you, Chief. Go ahead.
Let's see.
You don't have to say that.
I would like to thank the committee and the Village of Wolverine Lake for selecting me for this honor. It really does mean a lot to me and my family. I would just like to say I love doing charity work. It feels so good to help people and just bring joy to some people. I love doing that, and I will be continuing charity work through college and definitely beyond. Just help people out throughout life, because I just love seeing the good in people, and if I can help however many people I can, it's a good day of work for me. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I be nosy and ask how much the work was for?
Oh, I'm sorry. $1,500.
Wow. Yeah.
We have some changes coming up for next year's scholarships, but we'll get into that later.
Nice, well, congratulations, thanks, Monique, for presenting this.
Thank you for having this opportunity to do it here.
Yeah. Finally got him in here. A couple weeks.
He's busy.
Couple months rolling, yeah. Okay, with that, we have, next item is our Tiki Candle financial report.
Yeah. Well,
Pam, you can speak to this.
yeah, I am the chairman, or chairwoman of that, so every year, I look at where we've been and where we need to go. Every year I order less, and every year we're doing better at the amount of candles left over. This year, by far, was our best. We only had 70 candles left over, and when you think about it, there's 24 candles to a case, so that's just a little over 2 cases. That's really not a lot, when you spread them out between all the people that we have selling them. This is the first year the village has been selling them, and I started out with 1, not knowing if it was going to go or not. I gave them a second case, and they probably could have used a third, but with Tiki Night following on Monday night, closed on the weekend, we elected just to shut it off when they ran out, so. Also this year, it came to my attention that Menards was selling Tiki candles. Now, a couple years ago, we had some problems with the candles, and I researched every single establishment that I thought would sell that type of thing. Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards. I don't know if Ace Hardware Store was still here or not. But the only place that sold them at that time was English Gardens. So I continued with them. We did tell them we had problems. They did give us a deal on the candles. They did reimburse us for that. So, but the candles at Menards are quite a bit cheaper than the candles at English Gardens.
I think they're the same brand, too.
No,
They
they're
aren't?
not.
They're not?
I
Okay.
purchased two candles and had them over where we have Tiki Night to see how they burned in comparison. And it was such a mild night.
Yeah, it
everything-
was.
All my candles burned to the ground. I had no issues with candles.
We
I
didn't
don't think
either.
anybody did this year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look at that again next year. I talked to Menards. They said to come back in December. I will do that. I will also go back to English Gardens and tell him what I found out. And I will reach out locally to the Ace Hardware in town since it's new. But, I can make a round to everybody again because I said Menards was not carrying them when we had that issue several years ago.
Right.
But anyway, we did okay, and I think I might reduce the order a little bit. Now, I did notice at Menards there are 36 candles to a case, so that may come into the numbers that we actually order. So I'll take that into account as to how many I think we need to get, how many cases. So.
I believe we had like $232 left over that will float over for next
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
And then
we
we can
did-
adjust pricing if we need to next year,
Yeah,
too.
we did very well. Several people gave tips or money for the candles for next year and stuff. So it was good. It was really good. Usually everybody waits until 4 days before Tiki Night.
Or less.
Yeah, or less. And I hope people, if they're listening to me tonight, please don't think you can get candles at 5 o'clock on Tiki Night because we are on the lake too. We are having parties.
And we sold them at 5 o'clock on
Yeah. So,
the 3rd, yeah.
So please, try to get them early. We'd like to help everybody out. And more people are actually buying the citronella torches with refillable, which is fine.
Yeah.
Our whole idea is just to have everybody participate. We don't make it. In fact, we lost money on the candles. We bought them. We sold them for 4 cents less than what we purchased them for this year. So it's not a money maker for us at all. So just good luck.
Yep, the idea is just to get everybody to participate, like I said, so.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank my sellers.
So, do we need a motion to accept this?
It's a big one. Shank is a big one.
Motion by Duff. Second by Dumont to accept our Tiki Candle financial report, I guess, for 2023. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay, we're at Mr. Powell's stage of the game. This one's pay request for asphalt specialties in the amount of $109,083.80.
Correct. This is Really, two items contribute to this. Most of it is the 10% that was withheld from each of the payments last year. It's been our recommendation to keep 10% over a winter, make sure the pavement makes it through the winter properly, and then I walk it and drive it with the contractor. In this particular case, virtually all the roads in the southern part of the village. And I remind council, it was a 2-year budget program. We combined the 2 years to enhance the size of the project, which gives us a better rate from the contractors. So we had minor roads, major roads in the Clara Miller Park, retention fees that were kept for an entire year. The project came through the year extremely well, and there was also a little bit $44,000 bill for the major road repair that I withheld until this year as well. It was for a decision that I had to make at the end of last year on Wolverine Drive. Those driveways are so close together up down Wolverine Drive that I wasn't able to incorporate all the millings from the road project into the street in order to crown the road better and to kind of incorporate it into the roadway. So we actually had to take some of those up and haul those away. There was a substantial amount of materials that we had to haul away. We also saved approximately $60,000, $70,000 because we put an overlay on certain roadways after the project had started instead of milling all those up as well. So we tried to pull everything back below budget in order to make everything function within the budgets. So it's my recommendation to pay ASI the $109,083.80, which is the total due for the project that was completed last year.
So moved.
Second.
And incidentally, that does include the credit back for...
That does include the credit back of about $2,500, $2,400 because of a little bit of waviness that is on Wolverine Drive as you stop at Penny Lake Road. Structurally, the road's in great shape. It would have made the road worse if we had taken that up and repatched it, and so therefore I recommend that we accept the credit instead of make another patch in our roadway.
And was the striping also included in this?
A portion of the striping was included in the Clara Miller Park portion. It was paid for independently, though, and not paid for through this. We paid the balance of that was done last year directly to the contractor for the striping, not through this contract. So we still have some additional striping that needs to be done down Wolverine Drive, but otherwise it is complete.
Is that striping in this package?
That striping is not in this package. It's independent. That is correct.
Great.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
Mike, in terms of the striping on Wolverine Drive, do you have any status on that for us?
I called PK Striping the first of the week and then yesterday, and they have not returned my call yet. I did over the weekend see PK Striping. PK Striping is the contractor who received the contract for Oakland County and is doing all the striping the roads here on the western portion of Oakland County. The village has a program to where we utilize the low bidder for Oakland County for all our major road striping here in the village, and we've incorporated the balance of the road striping and some restriping in some older areas here in the village with PK Striping. And I don't know when they're proposing to be here yet. Long answer to a short question.
Anything else? Anything else? Nothing? Okay, motion to the...
I already did.
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, all in favor?
Need a
Roll call
on
vote,
that.
please. Sorry. Screwing up here.
McNutt?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Wozniacki?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes. And then for item 2 was the Apex Brick and Landscape addition that we talked about at the beginning of the meeting
Yes,
here.
this is another project, even though it's a small amount, we did want to make sure that we withheld 10%. Whenever you put sod down and do any landscaping, there's always the possibility that the bad batch of sod or seed and mulch or whatever, so we wanted to make sure that it was available for a redo if in fact the landscaping down Marchard didn't take hold like it was supposed to. I've inspected it a couple times. I see the neighbors are here, so they might have some thumbs up as well. Very, very pleased with the contractor. They worked with the homeowners very well. They even added a little bit at the request of one of the homeowners, put a little berm in there and some bushes. But the sod has taken hold extremely well, and I'm very pleased with it. And so I'm recommending that we give them their 10% retention, which is $365.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Duff, second by Dumont. Any discussion on that? Well, the weather's been cooperating, that's for sure.
It has.
It's been rain, so. Okay, with that, roll call vote, please.
Medrow,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
Thank you, council,
Anything else,
very
Mike?
much.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Just one comment related to that. Mike mentioned a couple of the residents are here. And just so council is aware, we do have some issues with a couple of the residents and related to the driveways at the property, and we're trying to work through those with the residents now, so.
Okay. Moving on to new business item 12A, Parks and Rec Board recommendation for release of budgeted funds for the 2023 corn roast in the amount of $10,000.
Motion.
Second. Motion by Duff, second by Jeremy. Discussion. I guess, Mark, do we have, what's included in the 10 grand? I mean, obviously, we got the band, we got all the food.
Food, petting zoo, garbage rental, things like that as well. Most of that goes into that.
Usually we get a fair
signage.
amount of that back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's from last year,
Okay.
with the exception of a
Tables.
couple things at the bottom.
Great. Okay. I was just curious. I didn't know that amount of the 10 grand.
We try not to reach that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we budgeted 10,000 for each of the last couple of years,
For
but
the last 3 years, and they've usually been somewhere in the 7,000 to 8,000 range, so they've been really careful with their money.
Okay. With that, roll call vote, please.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
Medrow,
Yes. And next one's request from Police Chief Ellsworth to purchase a new 2023 Chevy Tahoe patrol vehicle from Berger Chevrolet, cost not to exceed $39,393. Where's Berger Chevrolet?
Berger Chevrolet is in Grand Rapids.
Oh, okay.
They have the state bid and the Oakland County bid, and that's what we're fall under, is the Oakland County bid. That's the cheapest. If you actually look at their flyers, they're advertising the same vehicle at the police chief's for about $600 more than what we're getting it for. So we have a lot better of a deal than they do. But the problem is, and the reason I'm here today and hopefully be able to go there tomorrow to actually pick it up, is there aren't any vehicles out there. We actually, through the relationships we've been able to build with Bob, the guy's name is Bob Evans, believe it or not, from Berger Chevrolet. I begged him at the summer conference to come up with a black Tahoe for us. They actually wrangled one from Kent County. Kent County had 5 on their lot. They're now going to have 4 because I was able to wrangle one from them. So vehicles are very, very hard to come by. Mr. Deputy Chief Silvic can verify that. They look for 2 years to get vehicles, and they just got one. So we were very lucky, and to be able to get this price on that is a good thing. So we're hoping to take a quick drive tomorrow to Grand Rapids to pick that up. So
Is this still the price?
It is still the price.
$39,393?
Correct.
Motion. Do it.
Yeah, we stole it. It's unbelievable, the price that we're getting for that.
Motion by Duff.
Second.
Now we'll give it to O'Brien, second by O'Brien. And we'll probably be shifting some of our equipment over from...
Yeah, one of the things, another reason we're kind of in a hurry is our ordinance officer is driving one of the old Tahoes that, if you look real close at it, you'll see a lot of black duct tape across the back holding some of it, and then there's some metal rivets that we actually put on there to hold the fender on, and that has 128-some thousand miles on it. We'd like to get that one out of the service and get him into one of our hand-me-downs that's going to be in a little bit better shape than that. He would appreciate that too, with summer and the air conditioning and things like that. So, but the vehicles we have are actually in pretty good shape for the shape they're in. So we're able to hand one down. So we're going to start the process as soon as we get back from Grand Rapids tomorrow.
Okay, great. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Duff?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Jazinski?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
McNutt?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Have a good trip.
Yeah, thank you.
That was from budget funds, by the way, too. Yes. We're planning on that, so. Next is from our police chief again. The purchase of 3 flock cameras and cost not to exceed $10,500.
This one is not quite so cut and dry, obviously. This is something we had talked about during our budget process. The flock cameras, the more we learn about it, the more we like. I asked the deputy chief to look into it a little bit more, and we have answers to, we think, all of your questions. We're going to try to have flock camera here tonight for a presentation, but they had to be at another place tonight. It really comes down to access to the flock cameras, not only just locally, but statewide, and then even outside. There's 40 states that currently have flock cameras, as well as private industries. We just learned that Meyer, for example, Meyer Corporation, is getting cameras for every store that they own. And so they're going to be included on that. And when I say that, what that means is we're going to have access to, for example, if you remember a couple of years ago, we had a lady that disappeared. She was driving her vehicle. She was gone for 2 days before we found her in Detroit. These cameras will actually give us the access to all the other departments and all the other state facilities that have cameras for the recognize the license plate. I could have put her license plate in the computer, and all throughout, for us, it's Southeast Michigan. There are a lot of places that have these cameras. Wixom, West Bloomfield, Novi, White Lake now has cameras. And on a side note, with White Lake, I talked to Chief Keller, and he has one set of cameras up at Union Lake and Cooley, I believe, for 90 days. They've recovered 4 stolen cars in 90 days. He said they probably wouldn't have done that in the last year if it wasn't for those cameras. So these are the things that make available to us all these, and crime is down an incredible amount in those areas where those cameras are, and the solving rate for those cameras is incredible. So I'm asking for $10,500. Now, this is a yearly subscription at $3,000 per camera. We have 3 cameras, so it's $9,000 a year. It does get pricey, but at the same time, at what cost? I mean, we need to decide what is going to be a good breaking point for us. If this is very successful and we wanted to add additional cameras, we can do that later on. But I thought now to try it for a couple of years to see, you know, that's as far as it's going to go, is a couple of years. We're going to do South Commerce and Glengarry to start with and see how it goes. But I think it's going to be successful. We've written policies, so privacy is not going to be an issue. It doesn't have any type of facial recognition system or anything of that nature. It's specifically plates and makes of vehicles, so it doesn't identify the drivers or things like that. So it's not going to invade anybody's privacy. It's just like me standing out at the edge of the road watching vehicles. So it's something we're gonna try. Like I said, I think it's going to be very successful, but we have not tried it ourselves, but we're kind of excited to get into it.
Where are you going to put them?
South Commerce and Glengarry. We're doing 3, and the reason I did 3 is it's $3,000 cheaper, but we have to have cameras going both directions, or all 3 directions. So the 3 cameras, the South Commerce and Glengarry.
Motion.
Motion by Duff.
Second.
Second by O'Brien.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
President?
Yes, sir.
And I rarely make comments on something like this, but
I did have the ability to ask the question because I was very concerned if they were going to be used for traffic enforcement. Are they going to be taking pictures of people going through yellow lights, red lights, things like that? And they said, absolutely not. And then the next statement I asked is, will these cameras and the film or the pictures be available to attorneys? The concern was, will they be able to FOIA all this information and then use those in court proceedings? And they said, absolutely not. They're used, they're kept for 30 days, and they are not FOIAble. So I wanted council to know that and the public to know that as well.
Aaron, if I could add on to that real quick.
We are not the keeper of the records. Flock Camera is. So any FOIAs for those particular things would have to go through them anyway. So that takes it out of our hands. And like I said, we have a strict policy that there's no personal use and things like that on there. It can only be used for prosecutable offenses, not civil matters. So that should answer the question.
Well, it's more of a tool to alert what's going on. Right.
We're looking forward to, we're chomping at the bit. We think it's going to be a good tool to use.
Does it, if another community reports a stolen vehicle, does it alert?
Yes. Within seconds, it'll alert us. If it goes through this intersection, it alerts us, and that's how White Lake has been able to come up with the 4 stolen cars in 90 days, 3 months, so.
Yeah, that's the way, we talked about that last month, and you weren't here, Mike.
Yeah, it's an incredible system. We're looking forward to trying it. It's, obviously, it's going to be a very unique situation for us, being a smaller department, but the surrounding agencies had it. What we're looking for more than the use of our cameras is the ability to reach out and see where our suspect vehicles are in other communities and what they're doing. So it's the access. We're paying that much for the access rather than just our own cameras.
Everybody else, right?
And it's not only for just for criminal offenses like missing endangered children or maybe some dementia patients. If another agency enters the information to play into, like you asked before, into the system, and it comes into our jurisdiction, like you said, we get alerted in seconds. So we have an area, so we know exactly they crossed our paths at this certain time, and so we can, send our resources there to try and recover them. So it's not just law enforcement and criminal proceedings. It's for for missing children and missing older adults as well. So.
And they use a very good resource, a very good example. Somebody had abducted somebody in Tennessee, and they actually found them in Dearborn, I believe it was. Well, unfortunately, he'd already murdered her, but she was in the trunk of the car. But that car was pulling into Dearborn, and Dearborn got alerted, and they stopped it and was able to find and recover the person. So, so it does work, and I am nervously excited about this because this is really the first type of technology that's come forward in quite a long time. So,
we're not locked into a long-term contract either. So we can just see whether or not this is going to be cost-effective for us. So if we see over the next year or two it's just not really working for us, then we'll reconsider and go back to the table with that.
What's the basis for the 30 days of data retention?
Most crimes are discovered within that 30 days, and then we can investigate within that 30 days. We can actually ask them to extend, for example, if we're looking for a particular thing or have to go back for a certain time. But most urgent investigations are going to be discovered within that 30 days. So I don't know exactly all the back workings of how that goes, if we can ask them to go back in their records for any particular length of time, but our retention is for 30 days for these cameras.
Unless we see the video and we tag it, it's going to keep it from being deleted after 30 days. I think another reason is for storage, because this is a lot of heavy-duty storage for data. And getting rid of everything after 30 days, because you have thousands and thousands of cameras out there. So getting rid of that's just going to save on storage area. But we can tag an incident and continue to use that because we're going to need that for evidentiary purposes.
Say between 2 PM and 4 PM, we have a particular vehicle we're looking for. We can input the information that we have. Something pops up, we can save that information. So after 30 days, it will still be, that information will still be there, but it will be on a local server and not the main server.
Yeah, I guess my concern more of is 30 days duration being longer than perhaps necessary in terms of privacy and things like that.
That is,
and like New Hampshire has a law that it's 3 minutes that I saw, and so
that would make
highly restrictive.
Well,
I'm not advocating for that, but my point.
I guess what I would say to that is if we were to put in, say somebody broke in and tied somebody up at the house over here on Wolverine Drive, and we were to put in that information the next day, that 3 minutes, that wouldn't be there, that vehicle wouldn't be there. But if we weren't to find them for 2 or 3 or 4 more days, and we were finally got it nailed down to a particular vehicle or a suspect, and we had all vehicles registered to that suspect and put all those license plates in that computer, it's going to take some time to get us that, but it's all going to be within that 30 days. So, and again, we don't retain that for 30 days. Flock Camera Systems retains that for 30 days. That's them. We don't have anything. We don't have all that information available to us. And it's on there. It's available if we needed to, but we have to have a specific reason to have access to that. So we have a complete policy on that. You're more than welcome to take a look at that too before we publish it. I wasn't going to publish it obviously until we were up and running and make sure all our policies fit the appropriate actions for what we have to do for criminal investigations.
Would this include like a procedure for when another agency, another outside department is requesting previous years, like 10 days ago?
Actually, they can request it. What we generally do is you can give access to Southeast Michigan departments or Michigan departments or tri-state departments or nationwide. There's really not much reason for nationwide as of now, but then again, Ohio, if they requested us to access our cameras, we're more than willing to do that because it's under for a criminal investigation. We're willing to help them out. So for same thing with us, we have to have reciprocation from other departments when we give authorization for them to look at it, but they have policies too that they have to be under. We're trying to keep it so it's not just, it's got to be a criminal investigation for us to even get to there.
So we're not going to be allowing like an HOA or Meyer or something to request or get that data?
That's the other thing too, is all these private businesses do not have access to law enforcement or public cameras. They only have access to their own cameras. They are willing to give us access to their cameras because it helps them, it's beneficial to them. But we do not allow somebody from Meyer, for example, access to our cameras.
And then are you planning on using the transparency portal that they
Yes.
doing there and listing all that? Because I saw the one in Piedmont, California.
Yep.
That was really informative.
Yep, and that's the same thing. We have nothing to hide. We're not doing anything scrupulous. This is all above board, and we want to make sure that anytime we use this, I want to bring success stories here. That's my intention.
I have no concern with our officers, because as you've always done, you hire good people.
Yep.
You make them good cops. I
Right.
only have concerns with, well, there's just not enough good people that want to be cops.
And I agree with that. But at the same time, we can only control what we can control. Flock Camera has their systems in place for their but as far as the transparency, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Has Flock ever had issues with FOIA requests into their systems by attorneys or anything like that? Or?
They have a whole legal team that deals with just that.
Okay.
It's the same thing, when an outside agency requests footage from us, they also have to enter a reason why they're looking for it. And it's an audit trail, so they know who's accessing it and for what reason.
What they say prevented these cameras, Flock, what they tell either Mike or John, from having them be used for just routine traffic enforcement?
There's actually state law against routine traffic enforcement.
Right?
There is law, and these cameras are not that type anyway. They take snapshots. They're not a video. They're more of a snapshot, so many per second or so many per. It's not a video, for example. So you couldn't be able to tell how fast somebody's going by taking a picture of them. You're not going to be able to tell if they stopped at a stop sign.
Which means other people could.
Well, not by a
I'm a
snapshot.
plumber.
You're not, but you're not going to be able to see how fast they're going by a still picture.
No, but you can't by the next one on the frame rate.
Well, most people can't do that, and they're not going to do that. And but you can't. It's against the law anyway. They're not set up for that. Flock cameras are not.
So if that law is ever removed.
That will never happen. It'll never happen.
So if that law is removed.
It will
a camera
never
that
happen.
has those capabilities.
No.
Never.
No, it doesn't have capabilities. It doesn't have the capability to measure speed. They can't break it down. They don't have enough bandwidth to be able to do something like that. They just can't do it.
From the snapshots that we've seen, it's almost very, very difficult, if not impossible, to actually see who's driving, because you're getting a license plate, you're getting the back of the plate, so you might get the back of the head somebody, but
Yeah, chances are you're not even going to be able to tell what type of vehicle it is, and hopefully it's the right plate on that vehicle.
and there is no facial, recognition software.
So and you have to be able to identify the driver in order to.
We have, there is, a department could have facial recognition software that they could then use, in theory.
It would be very difficult because the inside of the car is blurred. The windows, if you've seen these photographs, you can barely tell if there's one or two people in there. Anything else is, it's just an outline. So
Do you know if there's an error rate that they report in regards to reading of the plates and reporting of wrong?
it's very low, but they can't define the error rate because of the out-of-state license plates. So it's really hard to say, but it's a 95% or above. So they're pretty good. And again, that's just one tool. It's not like somebody's going to be accused of a crime based on just that photograph.
But it's also the concerns of a license plate gets misidentified and officers respond to a stolen vehicle, guns drawn, and it's the wrong. These are instances I was reading about.
That is part of my policy. My policy already says that it has to be verified before a traffic stop is even begun. So that's, you know me, we don't do anything without crossing the T's and dotting all the I's. We make sure everything is very transparent and very above board. We're not trying to hide anything from anybody, and I don't think the people from Flock Camera wouldn't be as successful as they are unless they had a great success in the past. And they've done really well. I actually learned of these from one of those online or those TV shows, On Patrol or something like that. South Carolina uses these all over the place. They have shot spotters in theirs down there. We don't have shot spotters in these. I don't think we need to, but yeah, they use them a great deal. And when the shot spotter goes off, it flashes, gets the license plate, and tells which vehicles were in the area. So instead of stopping every vehicle, they only stop the vehicles that were in the direct area. So they do a really good job of it, and I really think that it will be beneficial for all of our officers to be able to have this, and our community is going to be safer for it.
I think so too. I just, this is new.
No, absolutely. And like I said, I had a lot of questions about it when I first heard about it too. And I had Chris go over a lot of this stuff today. So find something that's going to, raise some questions. And he was pretty good about all of the information. So
we just want to have some more questions as the operation, how it uses, but it's all cloud-based. But those are great questions that you brought up.
Thank you.
Well, with that, any more discussion? Okay, how about a roll call vote, please?
Duma?
Yes.
Kazanecki?
Yes.
Jeremiah?
Yes.
McNutt?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
All right. Timing? Just curious.
We did talk a little bit about that. It's going to be at least 90 days out. I have to call and talk to Rick again tomorrow and get some they've done the initial survey of the intersection thanks to Google. And they have to check with Oakland County, because I did see Oakland County down there working last week or so, looking at the telephone poles that are currently there. They could use the existing poles So that's something, but I need to make sure those existing poles are going to stay there.
Right.
So they're going to go through they do everything from the permitting process. So I'll know more in the next week or so about timing wise.
I imagine if they swap the poles out, they'd be moving the cameras anyways.
They don't want to do that if they don't have to, but no, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Next item's payment request for Spencer Construction for the roof in the DPW and Salt Building. And as you see, Dave's letter here kind of got in under the wire, I guess.
This was an issue actually we were going to bring to you for your approval before the work was done. But Spencer Knish Construction, Mike Knish, they had an opening in their schedule. They were the lowest of the three bidders. That would be our recommendation to have awarded the contract to them anyway. Because they had an opening, we jumped on the opening to get the work done, so the work has been completed. So again, a little bit after the fact technically, but again, we're recommending authorization of the payment to Spencer Knish for the work that has been done on the DPW buildings.
Motion by Dumont. Second by Duff.
Yeah, normally we don't roof things and then approve them, but he's been in the, Spencer Roofing's been in the village for decades, so I have a feeling that he would have just eaten it knowing that he wouldn't have to. That's probably how it really went down.
Well, plus he replaced 11 sheets of OSB, so, I mean, obviously, we're in need of replacing the roof, so I think it was going to be inevitable anyway, so. With that, any discussion? Okay, let's have a roll call on that, please.
Wozniacki?
Yes.
Jeremini?
Yes.
Mike Knott?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to discussion regarding short-term rentals.
This is an issue that council discussed a couple months ago, just conceptually, and based upon those discussions, our attorney Jennifer Olowski had agreed to do some work on this, and she has prepared an initial working draft of an ordinance to define and regulate short-term rentals in the village. She and I discussed it a little bit. We thought maybe the appropriate thing to do would be to bring the issue back so you could review the draft ordinance, offer any comments and things like that, and then provide direction as to what way you want to proceed. So if you'd like, I think Jennifer can give you some idea what some of the nuts and bolts are of the proposed ordinance.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Some of the highlights, especially for those here.
So this ordinance, it's not proposed for introduction, it's just to give you kind of foundation for, or to show you different terms that you could use.
Mm-hmm.
So our office researched other communities and what some of the common terms were. And Pam and I were talking about this a little bit before the meeting. You know, the numbers, like the number of people or the number of animals, or that's all stuff for you to discuss and decide. But I wanted you to see those terms. So some of the terms that are in here are needing to have a local agent so that not only the village but neighbors can contact someone if there's a problem. That would be in the case where, you know, if the owner, like one of the examples that was presented to council a couple months ago was the owner of the Airbnb or whatever it is wasn't even living in, I think was living out of state. And so to be able to contact that person and get someone to be responsive when an issue is going on is really essential. There's also regulations regarding trash, parking, noise, you know, fireworks, whether or not they can have special events, what constitutes a room, a bedroom, how many people can be in there, what are quiet hours, that you can have the same number of guests as you have, I guess, tenants, for lack of a better word. But those people, you know, can't be there during the quiet hours. The guests of the tenants can't be there during quiet hours. So those are just some of the different terms, and I'm sure you've read through all of this and can see. Now, we didn't include inspections because the village doesn't do inspections for any of the long-term rentals. And we looked at the size of the village and the staff and the ability of the village to do those inspections. But we could include that in here if that's what council wants to see in there, some type of inspection in connection with the application process or approval process. So, you know, you may have some ideas about some other things you'd like to include in there, which we can add and change and...
Well, just for everybody else's information that's here, this short-term rental is for less than 30 days or less.
Right.
Right? There is a yearly license that's required, right? So I suppose maybe at that time, if there are issues, you know, that could be noted, and when they come in for a license, maybe that's when some kind of inspection or, I don't know, nothing. Just thinking out loud here.
Right.
I would agree with that. I think an annual inspection is worthwhile because the smoke alarm should work. They should have the exit plans properly located, and the fire extinguishers should not be out of date. Those are laws that are just about in every building there are. There is.
Says the fire doors have to open.
Extinguishers and smoke alarms.
I don't know if you said the fire doors have to open, fire extinguishers, yeah, but the fire doors have to be able to open. A lot of times they can be chained shut, don't work. A lot of times when you steal, they get broken into and bent.
Yeah, because when people rent, they don't pay attention to stuff like that. They just say, oh, it's only $200 a night. Next thing you know, they're in a basement bedroom that has no egress window. That shouldn't even be allowed.
So in one of our other communities, they have a residential rental ordinance, two of our other communities actually, and it includes long-term and short-term rentals. Yours obviously is just short-term rentals, but that is the process. When they apply for the license, there's an inspection done, and there has to be compliance, and a certificate is issued for that compliance before the actual license is issued. Now, again, we didn't include that in this because you don't do that for your long-term rentals already. And it's okay to put something like this in here. We just didn't know if that's something you were interested in doing and, you know, administratively, how that would work, so.
With the inspection process, if there is an issue, is it any liability bounce back to the village? If something happens?
You mean like if someone were injured upon the property? No.
Okay. Do we have any legal grounds to say no short-term rentals at all?
Well,
so
that's an issue, you know, that's been going on for a while now, whether or not communities can be on the short-term rentals, and it goes back and forth. And so it really, I mean, the argument on the other side is this is, you know, a residential home. I should be allowed to use my residential home in a way that, you know, it's my home. It's a residence, so it's not a business. And we're in the right zoning district, so the owners are looking at it kind of as a non-commercial use, whereas sometimes the communities are looking at it as a commercial use. So that's the question, and, you know, to answer you, to say, can you ban it? Well, yeah, I mean, you can try that, but you may get challenged, and there's a lot of controversy out there on that issue. So, I mean, if you want a complete ban on short-term rentals, you can go that route, but you may have some legal challenges.
I don't think that anything less than an inspection, likely annual, for safety is going to make it, honestly.
Okay.
At minimum, I mean, it sounds like maybe a ban has been considered.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just information out there that people are asking.
Right.
You know, that people ask.
Is the concern that there's a lot of money on that side, like a large lobby or?
Well, so it's in the more recreational areas where there's a lot of, like, let's say out on the west side of the state or up north in like Traverse City area where there's a lot of that going on. In those communities is where the controversy really started. It got the largest, I think, like in the Traverse City area or on the west side of the state. But and that's what kind of prompted some of the legislation that was being proposed and then kind of died. Because it really is a split issue. And those are the two sides of the argument. You know, looking at it from a commercial side or looking at it from a residential side, my property rights versus, you know, the health, safety, and welfare of the adjacent neighbors. And, you know, how that is approached, I guess.
Well, if you're renting out your residence or a residence, it is a business, is it not? I mean, how can you say it's not?
Right.
It's an exchange of money for some goods or services, so i.e. a business.
Well, I think it's a distinction that's not recognized in like some of the housing codes maybe, or things of that nature. So it's not entirely spelled out. It's a very gray area of the law. And so that's why some changes were being proposed and some legislation to identify those specifically. But so we kind of, I guess, take a catch-all approach, which is why communities, you know, have adopted these residential rental ordinances and apply it to all of the rentals, whether they're short-term or long-term. Everyone gets, I mean, it's a safer route to do that because then you're not distinguishing between the short-term rentals and the long-term rentals, although there's nothing that says you can't do that. So
Well, I think there's a big difference between the people that do short-term rentals and long-term rentals. I mean, long-term rentals, that's their home, okay? They're living there probably 365 days a year. Short-term rentals, it's a vacation. You know, it's a long weekend, it's whatever.
Arrive with a suitcase.
Yeah,
That's it.
and I mean, big difference. But I think having a license and a yearly renewal is a way to, all this is just a start. Okay? Probably a year from now, or if we decide to go forward with this, we're probably going to have some adjustments as we learn.
Right.
Yeah.
And that has been true in our communities that has the residential rental ordinance. You know, the way that it was first written, because they adopted those ordinances, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago or so. And the Airbnbs and VRBOs or Burbos or whatever they're called weren't as popular, right? So the way that the ordinance was written that time period ago wasn't actually capturing the short-term rentals. Because the time period for rental was longer, so they had to do amendments for that too. They also did amendments for new construction. So a new construction unit that just went through the inspection process, you know, with the code, making sure that they were compliant with the electrical code or the building code or whatever the case may be, didn't have to go through the rental inspection process because they just went through the inspection process for the building being built. So that's also something to consider too. And we could include language like that in any kind of inspection. If this is a home that went through a building inspection in the last, 6 months or a year, then they didn't need to go through the actual rental inspection process because it'd be the same thing. I mean, that's what they're going to be reviewing.
Now, this would apply regardless if a person did a rental for 5 days for a year, or a person who bought the house and that's all they did it for, and had dozens of tenants over a year.
Right.
So single use or throughout the year use.
Well, these are rentals that are less than 30 days.
Right. But like I'm talking about, like an individual has their home, they're going out of town for a week, so they verbo out for a week.
Right.
And that's all they're doing for the year, as opposed to one who says, it's a second house, I'm going to rent it out, 10 months of the year.
It would apply to both of those.
Okay. And there's no minimum number of days that the tenant would be required, eligible to stay.
Right.
But it applies 30 days would be the cap, but it's not definitive.
Right.
Okay.
So, and then it also states in here that, this doesn't limit someone from having 2 Airbnbs in the village or 3 Airbnbs in the village. But there is, and you'll notice there's a blank in here as to how many licenses you want to issue during Cano. So that is somewhat of a, I guess, it's not an outright ban, but it's a cap.
Some
It's
sort
a
of a limit,
limitation
yeah.
on that. So, that, and I didn't put a number in there. I don't know what number you would feel comfortable with, but, that's a way to limit that use as well.
Now, as I read this, it looks like a person could have more than one tenant in a home at a time.
Yes.
So if they had 3 bedrooms, they could have 3 unique tenants staying there.
Right.
And so they could have up to 10 total occupants between
Right,
them.
because some of the rentals, some of these short-term rentals are like spaces. So, and you don't have to set it up that way. That was just, some of the different terms that we saw put in there, just so you could see, like, do you want that to apply to that? Or do you want to say, like, it needs to be a whole house rental, or,
That was one of the
that's something to
concerns
discuss.
brought to
like-
us a couple months ago, was that it was one house with 3 unique tenants staying there with a tiny driveway, for example. Granted, the driveway size could to some degree limit how many could be there if we're requiring them to be parked there.
Right, so there could be language in there that there's no partitioning of the dwelling for, different rentals. If that's something that concerns you. If you want to see just one, I guess, person or family renting or group renting a unit and not
At a time.
3 different.
At a time, yeah.
Right.
And this, I didn't see anything about corporations owning versus an individual owning the property. Nothing as of now, right?
There's no distinction,
On page 4, item E, it says, "All parking associated with a short-term rental shall be entirely on-site in the garage, driveway, or other improved area." What is an improved area?
Like a paved area for parking, and I can change that language too.
So in other words, not a street, right? I think I read
Or on a
that.
lawn.
Number, paved.
No parking on the street, yeah.
Yeah, no on-street parking.
Yeah.
So, the police department would then have a list, like a registry for the licenses that were issued, and would know where, that parking limitation is in place. Or code enforcement, I guess.
That's a start. I mean, there's a lot of good information in here, and like Jennifer says, there's different ways we could go about it, so.
This
So
could be a
you-
whole work session.
You'd want to do a inspection at the, prior to the license being issued, an inspection. And maybe an exception to that if maybe it's a new build within the last 6 months or
Because
something.
Will's saying, the building inspection is different from a rental inspection with fire extinguishers, smoke detectors, exits. That doesn't go in the general building inspection.
Acceptable numbers of bedrooms, et cetera. Those things have to be listed out on the rental agreement, or the short-term rental agreements, and they wouldn't be necessarily listed out in their building. So it would definitely have to be an initial inspection.
Right.
With every application.
So you will need to, for instance, in one of our communities, they subcontract out the rental inspections. And they, when they hired the consultant, sat down with the consultant and decided exactly what they wanted, not only the building code, checklist, but also things of that nature that you're talking about. So it will be up to the village administration to come up with an application and, a inspection checklist, if that's what you want to do, and some type of license or certificate that gets issued, things of those nature. Which, we've done before. We had to do all of that with the medical marijuana when that first started.
Yeah.
Come up with different lists and certificates.
Do we have any idea how many homeowners in the village are actually renting out their homes at any point?
I think you came up with some sort of an idea.
Yeah, after the last time we had this discussion, I poked around a little bit on the internet, and at least through Airbnb and VRBO, there were a total of 6, but there was one property that was listed on both sites. So a total of 5, to my knowledge.
It's relatively few.
At least that are registered. Now, there may be some that are listed privately or advertised privately, but 5 commercially
It's become
anyway.
more popular.
It is. And Marketplace also is a place where people advertise for the short-term rentals too now, and that's getting more and more popular, so. You just don't know where. Plus, in a smaller community, kind of word of mouth as well.
Has the cost for the yearly license been established, or is that still under discussion?
No, that would be something that Village Council would need to establish. And that would be dependent upon, are you going to do the inspections? And, how much work is going to be involved in processing the applications? And how much information do you want submitted? Because someone's going to need to review all of that information and, things of that nature.
I don't know if it would be necessary or not, but we own a rental piece of property up north, and part of the requirement is you have to show proof of insurance every year, or supply the name of your insurance company, contact number and all that, and then there's basically, only probably about a couple different insurance companies that everybody's talked, and so we all use them, and everybody knows everybody, but that may be something that it might be requiring.
Yeah, that's, I thought I put that in here, actually, but
I didn't know if
I don't
I
see
missed it or.
No,
You had a whole
I
bunch
didn't.
covered on it, but you didn't have that
Yeah.
covered.
Yeah, proof of liability insurance, property insurance.
Mr. President, if it's okay, since there was a discussion earlier from the...
Sure.
If you have any questions you'd like to ask?
Have we reached out to any of the current people who are renting out their homes? Offered, given them this to get some
Not at
feedback?
this point. I wanted you to have that discussion first.
Well, the whole reason we're talking about this is because there's been a couple issues in the village, a couple problems, right? So it's a matter of trying to solve some issues. I don't know, how's everybody feel? I think we should look at moving forward with the ordinance of some sort?
Well, we should.
I think we should. I think we owe that to our village residents.
Have a work session, you could have a work session on this itself.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think it's better to have it done, have an ordinance now than in a year or two, and it's increased even more in use.
Right now, if there's 6, it's easy to say the cap is 6. Next year, if there's 60, it gets trickier to say 6.
Do you think it's something we need to have?
The one thing about a cap is it's much easier to increase it
Yes.
than lower it.
Well, which way do we want to move forward with it? Plan a work session?
I think so.
Try to think through it?
Because if we're going to move forward, we probably should get some comments from the opposing, from the people who are renting, if they so choose. It's the other side of the story.
Yeah, get their thoughts anyways. And there might be some positive reaction to that too from some people that rent out, so. Well.
Proactive instead of reactive in this situation.
So we want to set it up for a work session then?
Yeah.
So, when do we want to have a work session on it, I guess? Want to go this month, or next month? I would suggest maybe we go a month from now, at least. Give us a little time to be able to get some information together and think about it a little bit, because 2 weeks from now might be a little tight.
Especially if you're talking about sending this draft out to the people that we're able to identify at this point in time as having rentals.
Especially if they're out of state.
Yeah.
Could be a tight time frame for them also, so.
I mentioned to Jennifer, we mentioned the number of people, but there's no mention of the number of pets. I'd like to see a number put in there too. Like if you can allow 10 people, I mean, how many dogs?
I thought it said one each.
One each?
I thought that was in there.
No, it
They had
had to be secure.
They had 3 bedrooms, so you rented to 3 different people, and they all brought dogs.
Right, you'd have 3 dogs.
It didn't come up with a number.
How about Wednesday, the 23rd, our typical work session?
August?
August, yeah.
Yeah, that works
August
best for me.
23rd?
Yeah.
So your comments this evening about the inspection and insurance and a couple of your other comments that seem pretty accepted by all of you. I mean, I would propose to incorporate those changes in here before your work session and before it goes out to anyone else. And then
Some sort of
you don't have to
language
keep
anyways. We don't have to
them,
keep
but-
it all, right.
Right, just to have that as your foundation instead of this.
Makes sense.
Because you've added some things that I think you're all in agreement on, so we could just do that for discussion purposes.
I think I'd agree with that.
So, do you mean that David Gillum is going to be putting this together, a rough draft, or are you going to rewrite it?
I'm just going to make a few revisions to the ordinance that I've written already and add a few things. I've made notes on here of stuff you've talked about, and it sounds like you're all in agreement on it, so. And then he can, whatever he's going to do
I can reach out to as best we can, to the property owners
Try to
that
figure out.
that we believe are rentals, and let them know of the work session in August, and invite them to come. So,
Okay. Any other discussion on this tonight? Okay, so I guess we'll move on. Next item is F, which is construction hours on South Commerce regarding a road culvert replacement, which is going to take place next year, we believe, huh? Next summer?
Next summer, that's correct. This all has to do with the stretch of South Commerce Road north of Glengarry before you get to the high school. In fact, even before you get to the condos.
Basically, bottom of the hill there.
Yeah, where we have the nice bridge going over the culvert. South Commerce Road is a road commission road. It's their responsibility to maintain. We've been notified by the road commission that the state, Eagle, our friends at Energy, Great Lakes and Environment, is requiring them to put a larger and different type of culvert under the roadway there. The job itself is going to take approximately 2 months for them to do. As I've indicated in my memo, according to the Road Commission, when we met with them, Andy Stone and I met with them remotely a couple weeks ago, there is extensive engineering involved. There are utility lines that run underneath the culvert that are going to have to be relocated. A lot of work that's going to have to be done. Some of it at the Road Commission's expense. Some of the utilities are going to have to be relocated, belong to Commerce Township, so there's going to be some expense to Commerce Township. Fortunately for the village, none of the utilities we own run under there. I mean, the water and sewer lines, things like that, serve our residents, but they belong to other entities, so we're not responsible for the engineering and relocation, whereas the township and some other entities are. But the job really can't be done when school is in session for obvious reasons. So the Road Commission is working with a fairly narrow time frame. I figure sometime in mid to late June until probably late August of next year is when they're tentatively looking at the job. When we met with them, I indicated my preference would be to have them not actually, they can start doing some of the site work and prep work, but to not actually close the road until after the 4th of July holiday. I'd be concerned with Tiki Night and everything that goes on in the village with having that whole northbound route through that part of the village closed off. So, again, working within the time frame that they said that they have, they indicated that it would help them if we would be willing to allow them to work a little bit longer than is currently permitted under our Code of Ordinances. Right now, as it stands, except for emergency work, and while this is a public project, it's not emergency work, we allow construction activity from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. from Monday to Friday, and 9 to 6 on weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays. So what they have asked, given the time frame that they're working in, is if they could have the weekday hours on the weekends as well. So in other words, that they would be allowed to work from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days of work a week as needed over the course of this project. They think having those, you wouldn't think it would make a difference, but they feel that it will over the course of a couple months. That having those couple hours of work time each day, each weekend, will allow them to be able to get enough of the work done that the road can be closed after the 4th of July holiday and still be reopened in time for the school year to start back up in late August. So my recommendation is that we authorize the road commission and or their contractors to do their work under the expanded hours that they've requested, again, in the interest of getting the job done as quickly as possible to accommodate the school district and the community's needs, to accommodate our needs in terms of Tiki Night and everything that goes around here on Tiki Night. So moved.
Motion by Duff, second by Dumont. Discussion. Do you know if we're going to be, if they're shutting, are they going to be rerouting sewer lines? So is sewer service going to be shut down possibly?
No, they will reroute and then make quick tie-overs to the new rerouted section, so the village won't be.
I wouldn't think so, yeah.
You may want to think about approaching the road commission and saying, at least through Tiki Night, to allow at least some access through there. They can start work on both sides, but just not cut the...
Well, that's what Dave's saying, don't shut the road down.
Yeah, you already said that.
So will they be getting the same waiver from Commerce for that, the other side of the, or is it entirely on village property that they're going to be doing the work?
I'm sure it would be. They'd
assume they'd
be doing the same thing to Commerce. Because basically, the only residents it's going to affect from our side is the people up in the condos up there. There's one house right over, and maybe whoever, the condos and whoever can hear anything from Tampa.
I believe the restrictions in Commerce Township are sundown to sunset.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't discussed during the same meetings. I'm sorry, sunrise to sunset, thank you. It's kind of like being here and being absent at the same time.
Exactly. Touche.
But yeah, from sunrise to sunset, so I don't think that's an issue, no. The only concern that Larry Gray from Commerce Township expressed during the meeting was not interfering with the school schedule, which obviously is an issue for us, but then we also have the Tiki Night issue. And why now, if you ask, why am I bringing this to you now instead of maybe closer to when this happens? The Road Commission specifically asked if we could get an answer to this question as soon as possible, because they want to put the hours of construction in the contract documents when they send them out for bid.
Makes sense.
Put more pressure on Commerce to the stands.
Okay, any other discussion? No, let's do a roll call.
Candy in my mouth.
Okay, let's not. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, next item is premium pay funding. Dave, you can handle this one, hopefully.
Yeah, as I indicated in the memo that I provided for you, essentially every full-time employee at the village, myself, Jennifer, the chief, everybody is expecting to be receiving some kind of a premium pay bonus for the 23-24 fiscal year. It's in the contracts that we have with the police union. It's in the contracts that we have with AFSCME. Council has previously approved the premium pay bonuses for all the administrative staff, things like that. And as the email that I attached to my memo indicates, the middle of June, we were notified by the U.S. Department of Treasury that we can't make premium payments in 23-24.
I think that's why we approved them originally, is because we were able to use the ARPA funds at that point.
At that time, premium pay, at the time that we approved them originally, premium pay was one of the few things that we actually could use the American Rescue Plan Act funding for. So we acted upon that. Now, the Treasury has shifted gears a little bit from their perspective. The national health emergency ended as of early April of this year, with the end of the national health emergency, you can still use the ARPA money for other things, but you can no longer use it for premium pay. So we anticipated this as a possible issue when we settled our labor contracts. Both contracts have a reopener. That is, if it was ever determined that we couldn't use ARPA funds for the premium pay, we put language in the contracts that we'd be able to go back to the table and reopen with the unions on wages for whatever was left in the contract. At this point, we've been making the premium payments for really 3 years, 2 years, and then plus a retroactive year. It was authorized by the Act. Rather than go back to the table to talk about a reopener on wages, when the total dollar amount that we're talking about, Jennifer did the calculations, for all the full-time employees, the total premium pay we're talking about is roughly $7,300. So it's hardly worth going back to the table and trying to split hairs at this point in time. So I've talked with both of the heads of the unions. They're agreeable. My recommendation is that you just authorize the administration to find the money to make what would have been premium pay bonuses using ARPA money, to find that money somewhere else. It'll probably come out of the fund balance, out of the general fund. But again, it's a relatively small amount of money. And I think that's the simplest, cleanest, and
So
most
moved.
way
It's
to
kind
handle this.
of, like you said, it's going to be just swapping the money, right? We're going to use the ARPA money for something else that we would have used general fund money for, and vice versa.
Yeah, we're not losing the ARPA money. It's just that we just can't use it for premium pay anymore.
Yep. So we'll apply it somewhere else. Motion by Dumont, second by Duff. Any discussion on that?
And then will this be the last year for that premium pay?
Yes. Yes, the premium pay has to be obligated by the end of next year, 2024. It has to actually be spent by the end of 2026. And we've received our full payment from the state, or from the feds
From the
through the
feds,
state.
through the state,
yeah.
So with that, any other discussion on that? Roll call vote, please.
Dumont,
Yes.
Kesnecki,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
Medrow,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to hot tubs, pools, spas. So this is to adopt, actually, the second reading, so it'd be adopt ordinance 39A1, which dealt with repealing 1472 swimming pools and replacing with new chapter 1472 swimming pools, spas, and hot tubs in order to enlarge public safety regulations, supervision for swimming pools to also include spas, hot tubs with the village. So this was the first part of the zoning ordinances that we changed. And I guess just
This actually isn't even the zoning ordinance. This is the swimming pool.
The swimming pool ordinance. It's part of the zoning ordinances that we had to change to fall in line with allowing hot tubs and spas in rear yards, or lakefront yards. So I guess the other thing I'd like to say too, just for our audience concerned, this was brought up a couple times with the zoning board of appeals. They had some cases that were brought before, and it was brought for the planning commission. The planning commission did look at it. We had a lot of discussion on it, and we had a public hearing on it. So there was plenty of time.
Public hearing, I missed that.
There was plenty of time before we adopted it, before we recommended the council to adopt.
Okay, I
So-
didn't see that in any of the minutes. I looked up. Do you know approximately when that was? I can go circle back and look. I'd be interested in reading that, the minutes from that.
Well, nobody showed up for the public hearing, actually.
Well, I'm not sure they were necessarily aware. How did you put out that planning meeting was happening?
It's been on the planning agenda for quite a few, probably at least 6, 8 months. I'm guessing.
People went to they'd go to Wolverine Lake site, look on the planning committee, see what was maybe in the works? Is that how people would be notified, by going to the website and
Yeah, and I guess that was one of my thoughts too. Maybe there is a different way we could try to get some verbiage out to people, the residents, when we're making ordinance changes.
There would have been a lot of attendance at that
But,
meeting. People know.
well, I mean, hardly anybody ever comes to a planning commission meeting. I can vouch for that because I'm on a planning commission. But there was a lot of time that was discussed at planning on that. And it went back and forth with zoning a couple times too, I believe.
Well, and actually, and as I understand the process, Brian, you're on the planning commission, I'm not. But the issue came to the planning commission from the zoning board of appeals.
Right.
And you discussed it, then you referred it to our planning consultant.
Correct.
And the planning consultant is the one who actually made the initial identification of the ordinances that would have to be amended.
Right.
And recommended the changes. Remember, because the
Yeah, then you sent me all those, and I
Right.
appreciate that.
Right. And so when you look at changing one ordinance in a zoning ordinance, I mean, to include a spa and in the pool ordinance, there are other ordinances, zoning ordinances that are affected. And that's where all these other ordinances come in.
Right, I've read all of them. I'm just
So-
saying that they all needed to have a lot of restrictions added, but, I mean, I was.
Like I said, that's what the planning commission came up with.
Yeah.
And
And really, my
Would you like to
primary
open so she can
issue
get on the mic?
was that.
It's okay.
My primary issue is that I don't think we were involved in it, and I get that we could have been, but I don't know how I would have known to have been. And we get I know on Tuesday in the park, I get an email every week, why couldn't we get an email? And with the short-term rentals, can we send something out on?
Well, that's where I was going earlier. I mean,
Yeah.
that might be something that, to try to get some more information out to residents.
Yeah, that'd be.
Maybe that would be a good thing to do. Maybe we could say that, hey, planning commission is looking at changing, the pool ordinance to include hot tubs or spas.
Well, like Wixom, for example, every Friday, they send out a larger email, but within at the top is all their meetings for the upcoming week with the agendas. So
That'd be wonderful.
whether so it's not just the council agenda. We send out the council agenda.
Right, yeah.
But we don't send out PNR or.
So I think that'd be a good idea. I mean,
anything else.
I think we're always looking for other ways to be able to get things out.
I mean, that's a great idea, thank you.
Yeah, so maybe that might be a good way to,
And just like with the short-term rentals, it's not just going to affect those 6 people, it's going to affect everybody.
well, sure.
It's going to affect people that don't even know it's going to affect them.
Oh, I know.
Everyone's going to want to know, yeah.
And you know what, that would be great. I'd love to have people come to planning commissions to be able to give some input, because, I mean, otherwise you feel like you're on an island, I mean,
Remember that?
and it's not right to have to make decisions to try to, that affect a lot of people when you don't have any input. So I'd welcome anybody to come, believe me.
They will get more than the chickens.
Well, you did post that on Facebook, and I appreciated that you posted about the chicken meeting, which I did not go to, but I thought it was nice that you put
We
it
had
out
huge
there.
turnout on that.
Yeah, people wanted to know about that, and they did know, there was discussion
Right.
in the community, so
Yeah.
that was very helpful, thank you.
Well, maybe that's the one good thing that could come out of this too, is another way to be able to get some information out to residents. So with that, I guess,
Do you think maybe we ought to wait until next month to do the second reading then?
I mean, I guess we could, we've already introduced it. I mean, I guess, I don't know how things go forward at this point, if we'd want to change something in it or not. Jennifer?
Well, it depends. If the changes are minor, then you
It's
can move
not-
forward.
yeah,
If
right.
you're doing
If it's
something
substantial,
substantive,
yeah.
you'd have to go back to the planning commission
Right.
and do another public hearing.
I'm not here.
Just a suggestion.
I think it would be worthwhile to hold off on it for right now.
Yeah.
What's that?
I think it would be worthwhile to hold off right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then, is that consensus?
To what end? So then what's the plan? Just do,
To send out some information, like Mark suggested, so more people in the village are aware that this is happening, and not give them an opportunity to voice any concerns before we make a new.
Well, we could post, I mean, these are on the minutes right now, so, I mean, they're available.
Yeah, although I noticed that I this is only for some, they do take a while to get posted. Like when I was looking for the previous month, they don't really show.
Well, June's meeting minutes were adopted tonight, so they weren't posted,
Okay.
they wouldn't be posted until tomorrow.
You have to allow that lag.
Yeah.
We don't post draft minutes, we only post
Right.
minutes once they've been approved.
Once they've been approved.
Correct.
So, okay. Well, want to postpone this until next month then?
Motion to,
So that would be HIJK. LMNOP. Just, well, that's only the.
That's not short one.
No, O is the
Only down to O.
Oh, it's something different, yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
do we have a second on that?
I second it.
Yep.
Didn't hear you.
And it looks like the public hearing was, what did we figure,
May 25th.
May 25th of this year. So,
But it was at the March and the April Planning Commission meeting. They discussed it.
We discussed it, and then we discussed it
May
prior to
was
that
the
even too.
public
I
hearing.
think we discussed it even
Yeah.
prior to that, because we
Okay.
had some discussion late last fall. on
I'm
it,
not sure
as I
when it came
remember.
out of the ZBA, but
Was there ever anywhere, and I know you did send me the full verbiage of it, was there any place that was ever posted anywhere for the public to read?
Just would have been on planning minutes.
Oh, were they in the planning minutes, were they attached to the actual verbiage? I didn't see that, but I could.
I know, they should, probably not.
they probably were not.
Probably just discussion on it, yeah.
Yeah, so that might be a good thing to send to people.
Well, technically, we don't,
the full text of the ordinance would have been in last month's council packet.
Right.
Which is posted online.
because actually, we get when planning goes through an ordinance, we usually send it up to Jennifer's office, and she does a formal write-up to put it in ordinance form, legal form.
Right, so a notice of a public hearing would have gone out referencing the ordinance and
And that would have been
and the
published, too.
substance of the ordinance, but
When you say go out, where does that go out to?
it publishes in, what?
Spinal
column?
Well, it used to be
the spinal column.
Public Notice Weekly, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, I don't know if you do any of your public notices on your website or anything, but
No, but that's probably
every
something we
community's
should do.
different. They're required by law to publish in what is their legal newspaper. And so each community has its own legal newspaper, and this community's is the Spinal Column. So every time there's a public hearing, it gets published in the Spinal Column. Some public hearings have to be directly mailed.
Spinal column in months.
The Spinal Column no longer exists, it's now the Public Notice
Public Notice
Weekly.
Weekly, right.
Oh,
So-
public,
Weekly?
okay.
The Public Notice Weekly, it is significantly thinner, but that does legally qualify for this requirement.
Where does one come
Yeah, where does one
across
buy
The
one?
entrance to up here is the only place I've ever seen it.
That's good.
In all honesty.
It's
You used to get the spinal column occasionally,
Well,
but
last week's council meeting, it was listed somewhere because we had 4 or 5 people that
I
came
do
in to
too.
talk, speak on it.
yeah,
So they found out about it somehow.
yeah.
So it must be posted.
Part of it
And
is
I
the,
believe you met the legal requirement.
Well, yeah.
Asking if you had made.
Yeah,
the
no,
real
I'm just
issue
trying to
is
figure
the
out
legal
how they found
requirements
out.
based from the state are from 50 years ago.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
They're so.
They're very archaic.
They're archaic relative to modern technologies.
Yeah, I think the one thing we came up with tonight, though, is that we could do a better job, try to do a better job of getting information out to residents, and maybe posting some stuff on, shooting some emails out to include what planning commission's working on or whatever. That might be a good idea, or some emails.
Even explaining
Email
how
blasts
to
here and
find
there.
the council
Yeah.
packet online would be useful, is I don't think a lot of people realize the council, what we have in front of us, is available online.
I was not aware.
For
Where do you-
everything-
Where do you access that?
I'll show you.
Website,
That'd be great.
yeah.
Hard to explain.
Yeah. I know, well, there's a document place. It has
Yeah,
the
it's
agenda
in there.
and the minutes. It's in there?
Yes, under
Okay,
council.
I've not seen that.
Council packets are included on the website. The packets for the other village boards and commissions are not,
Okay.
but for the council meetings, they are.
And that would have been
All the
posted.
ordinances are
The draft of
The drafts are-
the short-term rentals, that will be posted on that website? Is that on the website?
That's up there now.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be up there right now.
That would be up there basically Friday before our meeting.
Correct.
So it would have been on there last Friday.
When the agenda is posted, the packet is posted. Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess we're at the second call.
No, we
Oh, we didn't.
got tree ordinance.
Tree ordinance. Tree ordinance.
Item O.
That's right. So this is the second reading, adoption of ordinance 162 to amend the tree ordinance in order to delegate authority and responsibility for managing public trees, establish practices governing planting, care of trees in public property, and make provisions for the emergency removal of trees in private property under certain conditions. So we introduced this last month, and this would be for an adoption.
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Duff, second by O'Brien. Any discussion?
This was in the requirements of the grant that we received and everything as well, right?
Yep, the DNR grant.
Yeah, based upon a model ordinance from the RPA Foundation, yes.
What are the circumstances where we are taking trees down off private property? Never mind if you can.
The emergency removal of
Just,
trees?
yeah.
It's a section that's on page 4 of the ordinance, section 107007. Trees that are declared a nuisance, trees that have lethal communicable disease or insect, they're dead or dying, they obstruct the view of traffic signs or the free passage of pedestrians or vehicles, or that otherwise threaten the public health, safety, and welfare, and the owner has refused to remove the tree at their own expense. So it has to meet the criteria, and the owner, having been provided notice of the fact that there is a nuisance tree, does not take the tree down themselves.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
That becomes the owner's expense though, right?
Yes, we would charge that back to the property, yes.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Now we're at the second call of the public. 20 minutes early. So if anybody would like to speak, if you could, let's open the public. Motion by Duff.
Second.
Second by O'Brien. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Okay. Hi.
Kathy Corellis, 2533 Marshar Drive. Just wanted, as a representative of a group that initiated a discussion and conversation in May about short-term rentals, I thank the council for working on this, and I am happy that there's going to be a working session. My question is, are working sessions open to the public?
Yes.
They are. Because while I think it's really important that Airbnb owners are involved, I think community members that are really highly and directly impacted by the Airbnbs would be very interested as well. So again, thank you. Everyone that signed that letter was very grateful in May, and we're very grateful again tonight. And how will we learn when the working session is? Was it already?
August 23rd at 7 o'clock, right here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Spread the word.
Again, thank you again.
Thank you.
Kathy, the only difference between, for example, the meeting we're having tonight, a regular meeting, and a work session, is that council can't take any official action at a work session.
Understand.
No motions, no approvals, anything like that.
Basically just discussion.
But in terms of that, in terms of an agenda being posted and published, and public comment and discussion, it's still all the same. So.
The other thing I wanted to say is, talking about public hearings, I many times get from zoning board, actually a notice in the mail, particularly when it's like a home adjacent to where I live that were directly impacted. So many times I have received notifications of public hearings. So I just...
Typically with zoning, if it's somebody within 300 feet.
Yeah.
So it's required by law.
It's required to notify them.
So it's helpful,
Yeah.
and I have done to a few. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, motion to close. That's motion by Duff.
Second.
Second by Dumont. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Do we want to have a July 26th work session? No.
Motion for council.
Second.
Motion by Duff to forgo July 26th work session. Second by Dumont. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Pending business. Do we have anything pending?
None other than I'm
Take care of
aware of.
tonight. Nope. Perfect. Update from Police Chief Ellsworth.
Thank you guys for tonight, the cameras in the Tahoe. Wanted to give you a brief update verbally about Tiki Night. It went off really well. It was, I think, a rather smaller crowd on the outside. I think there were just about as many boats out there. There was a lot of boats out there. But it was a good night. We had one small incident, and it did not involve our residents, come to find out. It was actually a guest of one party and a guest at another party were having firework fights, and I didn't like it, and so that progressed. But we quashed that quickly, and everybody went on about their way. So overall, it was a very good, safe night, and we're very pleased with that. So, yep, that's it. Our new deputy chief survived the day, so he came back a couple of days later. So
How
he did
many
well.
officers work on Tiki Night, John?
We have anywhere from 18 to 20.
Wow.
We actually beg, borrow, and steal. So we trade. Like, for example, Walled Lake's Memorial Day Parade, we give them 2 or 3, and Tiki Night, they give us 3 or 4, or it depends. Wixom is the same way. Oakland County Sheriff's Department's been really gracious with their reserve program. They brought in 5 or 6 and some different vehicles and such. So, and then our DNR partners and Commerce Fire actually had a fire boat out there on the water. So we actually had 5 boats on the water this year. It was amazing. So, some people say, "Oh, that's overkill." Well, no, it's not. If we have an emergency, we're doing really well. But we have it planned out now. It's a good plan in place, and we've done it many years in a row. And it's getting a little bit less nerve-wracking. I have 1 more to go, and I'll be glad to sit back and watch it from somebody's backyard. So I think that's it. Thank you guys very much for all of this, though. It is, we work hard to make the community safe, and you guys work very hard to make sure we have everything we need, and we appreciate that. So thank you.
Incidentally, I just want to mention, Chief, on Mr. Renwick's email, he had mentioned that he had had some medical issues earlier in the year, but his email was basically about the rubbish, which he's discussed before, but he did finish up his last reply by saying that as a citizen who had called 911 several times in the last several years, council should note the first person on the scene in every instance was the Village of Wolverine Lake police officer. In every instance, they responded promptly, offered immediate assistance if necessary, directed traffic around the scene, and made sure my wife had all necessary items like house keys, insurance cards, and prescription lists to follow the ambulance in. And our house was safely locked after she left. In one word, our police department is the best. And Chief Ellsworth and all his officers have my sincere, heartfelt thanks for both professionally and compassionately looking out for my wife, my home, and myself.
Wow.
I just thought I'd mention that. That was very nice to hear. So.
It is nice to hear.
Not a surprise, but...
Yep, not a surprise. Okay, moving along, Treasurer Hanson, anything?
Not really. You should have all received your tax bills. We'll be collecting those until August 31st.
Yes, we did.
Sorry.
Thank you.
So we're real busy in the office with that, and I hope everyone had a great Tiki Night and a good summer.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gillum.
I just wanted to start by complimenting our residents for their behavior on Tiki Night, the police department for all of its work on Tiki Night, the chief and everybody else that was involved, and also thanks to the other departments and communities that assisted us. We couldn't do it on our own, that's for sure. And also, Monique isn't here anymore, but also thank you to Onwards and Upwards for the support that they gave to funding the fireworks and everything else that they did in relation to that. Mark, maybe you can pass that along. So, also, a big related but unrelated thank you to John Melville of Mel's Truly Clean. I wasn't in the office that particular day. I was coming back from a wedding in Ohio over the holiday weekend, but with the heavy rain, we had some flooding down in this room on July 3rd. And someone from the police department found it when they were going to the locker room. We put out a 911 call to John. he contacted his carpet guy who was buried because there had been so much flooding. So John himself went out and rented a sweeper, whatever you call it, and came in and worked until probably about 8 or 9 o'clock on Tiki night, sucking water out of the carpet down here in the basement. And then he came back and finished the job on the 4th of July holiday, in fact. So when I came in on Wednesday morning, there was still a little bit of a musty smell in here. It was pretty much gone by Thursday, but you could only imagine what it would have been like if we had had that much standing water down here in the basement for 3 or 4 days. We probably wouldn't be meeting down here tonight. We'd probably be meeting somewhere else because we would have had to tear up the carpeting and things like that. So, I mean, we are paying John for the time that he put in, but still he went above and beyond. And we appreciate the work that John did on that project. Also received some good news yesterday from Mary Carlock, our grants coordinator at the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. Our Natural Trust Fund grant, the project plans, specifications, and bid documents have been approved by the state. So we have to update those because we had put certain dates in terms of the bidding process, deadlines and things like that. We have to update that information, but in the not-too-distant future, we should have all that information out for advertisement so we can really start to move forward on the project over at Clara Miller. Then the other information I want to pass along is it's still somewhat preliminary, but to give everybody an update as to what's been going on with public transit here in the west side of the county. I think everyone is aware that the transit millage was approved by a majority of Oakland County voters last fall in November. Didn't take the county long. Those bills hit our tax bills in December, so we've been paying. There are 7 communities here in the west side, southwest part of Oakland County, including the village, that are currently served by People's Express. We actually get service from People's Express under Commerce Township's contract. We don't have a direct contract with People's Express, but we fall under Commerce's contract, and when we support, we contribute some of the municipal credits that we get from the state under Act 51 to People's Express through Commerce Township. So we're helping support the activities, and of course, on our residents, when they get a ride from People's Express, they have to pay the fare. But along with Commerce Township and ourselves, there are 5 other communities. When the transit millage was approved, we were all concerned about whether or not we were going to have a seat at the table and how transportation services were going to be defined by the county. Because to be perfectly honest, we did not have a seat at the table in the process of drafting the millage language and even deciding whether or not to put the millage on the ballot in the fall. So we organized, we felt it would be best if we presented a united front. We identified what we saw our needs to be in this part of the county. From our perspective, we felt that we were all already under contract with People's Express, and we're paying for services that were being provided, which were very good services. We're all very happy with People's Express. But on top of that, we were now paying a millage, so we wanted to be able to sit down with the county and figure what else we could get above and beyond what we're already paying for. That is, what's the payback to the village and its residents and the other communities for the millage that we're now paying on top of what we were already paying. So we met, we identified our needs and our priorities. We reached out to the 3 Oakland County commissioners that serve this part of the county. Christine Long is our county commissioner, along with Phil Weipert and A.J. Rahman, who serve all or parts of the other communities that are involved. They were very supportive as well. We were able to have a series of meetings, initially with representatives from the Oakland County Executive's Office that were mildly productive. But once the county moved forward and actually assembled the Transportation Division, which is run by a gentleman named Eli Cooper, who came to the county from the city of Ann Arbor, where he had been involved in public transportation for years, and some planners to support him. The discussions became very, very productive from our standpoint. As it stands right now, the Oakland County Board of Commissioners is tentatively scheduled to be reviewing at their first meeting next month in August a proposed agreement with People's Express for People's Express to continue to provide transportation services to all 7 of us in this part of the county. The contract, with the exception of the municipal, will continue to contribute our municipal credits we get from the state under Act 51, under the Road Act, to help support the activities of People's Express. But other than that, and the reduced fares that our residents will pay, everything else will be paid for by the county using the transit millage. So, in short, what we're talking about, and I had to write it down to make sure I got all the details straight, but we're going to be able to keep People's Express. The amount of fares that our residents will have to pay to ride on People's Express are going to be reduced. The hours that People's Express will serve our residents is going to be increased, is going to be expanded, so more service, and it's going to include service on the weekends now. It's currently only Monday through Friday, and the service area is going to be expanded significantly. So you're going to be able to go further, more often, at a reduced price on a carrier that we like and that has continued to do well in the past. So now this is all subject to the County Board of Commissioners approval, but assuming that they do approve the agreement with People's Express at their meeting early next month, then service is supposed to start under the new contract in roughly 30 days. So I would say hopefully by the middle of September, we'll have even more enhanced transportation services for all the residents than we do right now. It's still not the best deal for us because we're still paying the millage, and we're still not getting dollar for dollar in terms of what we're paying through the millage. But from where we were at right after the millage was approved,
nothing,
where we were completely in the dark with nothing, we've come light years. So this is a real step, and I mean, we have our issues with Oakland County, but I have to admit that the Eli and the people in the transit division really stepped up and have really, I think they really have tried to make things work for us here in the southwest.
Since you can't brag on yourself, David, you've been in there for about a year now.
Socking it out, yeah.
Hard, and so I know that, like I said, you can't say it, but he's been involved way, way, way early on when this thing was just tickling as an idea. So thank you.
I appreciate that. I mean, it was a team effort. It was all of us from all the different communities. We participated. We all kind of developed our different kind of roles in the discussions, if you will. But it's been a good group, and hopefully it's a basis for the 7 of us to continue to work on other things going forward, too. So it's good news on the transit front. Stay tuned, and then hopefully once we have a contract in place, I can let everybody know that, and it would be more good news. So, good. That's what I've got. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Gelb, if you wouldn't mind mentioning the Bechstein project update.
Oh, yeah.
The Benstein, the water main that Commerce is installing along Benstein Road, which started, I think, in January and was supposed to be a 12 to 16-week project. The contractor for the township ran into problems because as they were trying to do their directional bore underneath the lake, the boring kept collapsing. It delayed the project. Then for a period of a couple weeks, they had to bring another contractor in to literally, as I understand, dump large amounts of liquid nitrogen in to the ground to freeze the ground enough for them to be able to do the bore. And then we just got an email from Commerce Township's engineer today that they should have the last of the bore done probably sometime early next week. And then once they get that done, then they'll be moving their equipment off-site. They have to go tackle a job somewhere else, but once they're done there, they will return, and then they will start going north on Ben Steed towards Glengarry Road. But the engineer assured me that the work on Ben Steed going northbound will go much more quickly, because it is a very traditional job for them, as opposed to having to undergo the lake bed. So hopefully the traffic will improve over there on the west side of the village. We still have to be vigilant. We have to make sure they've done some real damage to the roadway over there. That's not our road, that's a road commission road. The road commission is aware of the problems, but we're going to try to stay on the road commission and make sure that they insist that the contractor make the road as good as it was before all the work was done over there. So,
Speaking of the road commission, I know when you pull out off of Del Monte onto Ben Steed going south, I mean, that overbrush has grown up so much you can hardly see cars coming. And that's a safety concern pulling out there.
It was a safety concern last year before they started this, and we got on them all. I think we called them, me and Andy called them both at the beginning of the year.
Right.
Summer last year.
I remember you saying that,
Mr.
yeah.
Gillum actually got involved towards the end of the summer, and then nothing ever did come of it.
we had our semi-annual planning, Andy and Mike Powell and myself, with the road commission earlier this year. We again identified that as an issue. My suggestion would be, very honestly, is let's make some more noise. If you go to their website.
I was going to go to the Commerce Township meeting last night, and they got tied up. But
It was the road commission as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But if you go to the road commission website, there's a spot on there where you can make a complaint, you can report a concern. That's what I ended up doing after I called and didn't get a response. I know Bob Malik has done the same. So I would encourage people to contact the road commission directly. Maybe if they see enough complaints from enough people, they actually get out and take care of the problem.
I know Rob Jankowski's been pushing that too.
Yeah.
Similar but different, pulling out of in either direction. McCoy, if you're pulling out onto Ben Steed, if you're, it's the same problem looking right, different problem looking left, and that's the construction people are parking their vehicles there, and it's in a direction where you can't see 50-mile-an-hour traffic coming.
It's been a project for how long?
Well, that's been on my list.
Since the whole thing,
They rearranged for a little while, and they brought him back. It's unfortunate that this has happened, but it's, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train this time, so hopefully.
It makes for some decisions that have to be faster than they should be.
Yep, I agree.
Yep. At the same time, too, I would encourage everybody to keep in mind, too, that once that water main is in, it's a good thing for the village.
Oh, yeah.
Because it completes a complete loop around the village in two different directions.
Well, they still have to come back and bore underneath the corridor, correct? Come across, bore across Ben Steed to come across to McCoy where our sign is, correct? Doesn't that one come across right there?
It does come across, but I didn't know if they'd already completed that.
Well, that was the easement that we had to get, right?
That was one of the first borings they did, I think.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
Yeah, that was the subject of the Hafley litigation.
Right.
So, which is still pending in circuit court, by the way. So.
Okay, well, enough Ben Steed, I guess. Council comments. Start with Mark.
Great Tiki Night. I really enjoyed the fireworks. Thank you to our police and all the support they had. Welcome Deputy Chief Silvick. We survived Tiki Night, so now it's going to be pretty easy for the next July 3rd. Yeah. And Chief, if you're looking for a great view, I've got one now, thanks to the storm last year that knocked down that monster tree right by the launch. It was the best view I could ever imagine. I could sell tickets, so I was really happy with that. Congrats to Jack on the scholarship. It was really, as a member of On Up, it was really great to see some young people in the community and the already terrific resumes that they've developed just through their activity in helping others and things like that. And we had 3 people apply, and all 3 are going to be doing some great things. And Stacy, thank you for your input, and to anybody in the public who comes out and provides input to the council and our other boards. We oftentimes don't get it and would love to have more of it so that we actually know we are going in the right direction on things. So, thank you.
Okay.
So just congrats to Jack on the scholarship. Great man, and to receive both.
Yep, I thought the fireworks were absolutely fantastic. Better than last year. I had a lot of people beeping their horns, and everybody on our boat was oohing and ahhing the whole time. So, great job, Chief and Chris. Glad to see you came back. And hope everybody has a safe and healthy month until the next time we meet. And congratulations also to Jack.
Okay. Pam?
I also wanted to give congratulations to Jack, and I'm glad Tiki Night turned out well. And I want to thank all those behind-the-scenes people who work on the barges and cleaning them and preparing them and moving them, and that everybody else is enjoying with a beer in their hand and a hot dog or a hamburger in the other. So, I mean, it's a lot of work. A lot of village people put a lot of hours into that, so I want to thank them. I don't even know who all they are, so I want to thank them.
Mostly JR.
I knew he was key in it, but there are other people too. And I applaud you. I applaud everybody in the audience that comes and makes comments, because you don't tell us, we don't know. We can't read people's minds, and I think that this council, more than any other council I've ever seen, has really been open, very honestly, to accepting suggestions that I haven't seen in the past. So I'm very proud of that, and appreciate your input. Thank you.
Congratulations to Jack. Tonight was good. Well, nice to see you, Chris. And everybody have a safe summer.
Yeah, Chris, glad you got a chance to see our fireworks.
I did.
Yeah, it's fun.
Amazing day.
I happened to be back in town for that night, and I was kind of alone, but last minute my brother came over and his family, and they mentioned that, since 2003 they hadn't missed a year, and they hadn't. So he said, this is the best fireworks display I've seen since 2003. And they went on to say why. Fireworks were taller. Now, that's based because unless the trees have gotten shorter, you can see more of them, literally. And I looked to see. I'm not kidding. I glanced up there to see if the trees had gotten shorter. So they were taller. There were more larger sized fireworks, the more impressive ones. They were more common. And it timed at something just short of a half hour, which is a great length of time, I thought, for a show. And and everybody agreed. There wasn't a person there that didn't say this is the best show that they had seen in Wolverine Lake. That's it.
Okay. Well, again, I'd like to thank everybody too for, it was a great night on the 3rd, and I'm glad everything went off safe. And a lot, like Pam said, a lot of people in the village, everybody's effort. It takes everybody's effort to get that together, and it's one of our special times of the year, so I'm glad everything went well. And welcome Deputy Chief again, and everybody have a good, safe summer. I know it's been kind of crazy out in the lake a little bit. I haven't been out there a whole lot, but yeah, we'll have the chief out there this weekend, I think. So, but everybody enjoy the rest of the summer, and see you next month. So, with that,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
motion by Duff, second by Dumont. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.